You know it's going to be bad when your teacher walks in with a stack of papers that are color-coded. Colored paper, that means that whatever they're about to hand you is going to be just the beginning of some long-lasting, soul-draining project. I mean, they're going to be making references to this for like several weeks, saying things like, "It's all on that blue sheet I gave you." After you have the paper in your hand, you just wait for it. The news you really want to know, like, how long is this monstrosity gonna take? You can't even hear anything else until you know how much time you're gonna have to spend on this thing, so why don't they just get to the point? This week we're kicking off a series about constructing essays and tackling a lot of the challenges that go along with them, including how to build introductions, how to support your ideas, and of course, how long do these things really have to be? Today we get to the length issue by looking at basic organization on this week's episode of Words from the Muck. There are a lot of different genres of essays that you'll be learning in school, like description essays, compare and contrast essays, research papers, and literary analysis essays. But all of these are built on the same basic structure called a thesis support format, which is often called a 5-paragraph essay. So my essay just needs to be like 5 paragraphs? Not necessarily. A thesis support essay format is almost like making a presentation. You're going to start with the thesis statement near the beginning, which is a moment when you state your position or idea on this subject. This happens in the first paragraph or so, and the rest of the essay is used to support your stated position or idea, which is your thesis. The 5-paragraph idea exists because a teacher needs to give you the space to play with your idea, or at least enough time to really support your ideas. But essays didn't always used to be this way. When essays first became a thing, they were called essays because the word essay means to attempt. They were guided tours of the minds of writers as they attempted to make sense of what they saw or what they thought. Sometimes these attempts were less than a page, and others might have been several pages. They were cool little pieces of writing, and they were taken in by schools because they allowed students to show how and why they thought what they thought. The downside is that schools usually require more of a defined structure for their students, so we don't ask you to write down your best understanding on the use of imagery in this Robert Frost poem. Instead, we tell you to introduce us to the poem and your idea, then spend 3 paragraphs explaining the what and why of your thinking, and then to conclude your thinking. So most teachers will be asking you for a thesis support essay, usually at least a 5-paragraph essay, which can be stifling for some writers. However, once you know the formula they're after, you can start to play with it and make something that feels a little bit more like you. So let's do a brief overview of what your teacher is actually looking for. A typical introduction exists to create some context for what you think. It might talk about general ideas on a book or character, or talk about the reputation surrounding your topic. Maybe you ask some good questions that you'll be answering in the rest of your essay, or maybe you present a scenario that you want your reader to think about while you share your thoughts. However you start, your teacher is probably wanting you to end this first paragraph with a thesis statement. A sentence that clearly states what you think about the topic at hand. If you can't think of how to state what you think, it's totally okay to build your introduction after you've written everything else. The body of an essay exists to support your ideas. Basically, you are given the space to provide every reason you have for thinking what you think. The body should be at least 3 paragraphs long, so for beginners, come up with 3 different reasons for why you think what you think, and make 1 paragraph for each of your 3 reasons. But what if you couldn't even think of a thesis statement? I don't know what I think, let alone have 3 reasons for why I think it. So this is where that little history lesson can help you. I called essays a guided tour, the attempt at thinking through something. Start a paragraph that explores the first thing that comes to mind on a topic. What did you think of when you first knew you would read a poem in class? What was your first impression of that character in that novel? How much did you already know before researching that topic? If you can start from there and guide your reader through the evolution of your thinking, you'll be surprised how much content you can come up with. Important side note, if you haven't really spent any time reading or thinking about your topic, this becomes much harder. But it's okay to not know exactly how to talk about your topic, so use the questions you're still struggling with to enhance your tour. If you've really thought about the topic, the questions and how you came up with them or why they're so confusing can make for some really good material. But if you only read stuff online and asked a friend before class about the book you were supposed to read, then you don't have much of a tour to give. Because the work is not in writing the essay. The work is in the thinking that goes into the essay. Finally, wrapping up your essay essentially summarizes all of your ideas. Now that you've led a reader through your ideas, remind them of your thesis. And if you haven't written your introduction yet, maybe this is the first time you articulate those ideas. And that's fine. Remind the reader of all the things that you've just said and how they led you to this concluding idea. Essentially, connect the dots one last time so they can clearly see the picture that you've been trying to create. And now that you have a clearer idea, you can use that idea to build that thesis in your introduction. I know it can be intimidating when you're asked to write an essay on something, but with the basic formula, hopefully you can get used to navigating those academic waters a bit more. How long should your essay be? Well, a teacher can always change the length, give you numbers of pages or specific numbers of paragraphs, but remember that each essay will be expected to have at least 3 sections: an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So the length may vary, but each of your essays should have those 3 sections, and knowing what should go into each section should help you out. We'll go more in depth on how to build good paragraphs and introductions in upcoming episodes, so make sure to subscribe for that. In the meantime, check out our video on plagiarism so you don't get mixed up with some bad writing habits in your school writing. We'll be back next week with more wordly wisdom, but until then, farewell, good people.